Right there, right there. Hey guys, welcome to the Thorntail X information video. If you're here for 1913 light mounts, hit the link down below that'll take you over there to tell you all you need to know about 1913. If you're here for M-LOK light mounts, you're in the right place. Contact! Push, push! Thorntail X, what is it? Well, the X is for 10 years. We've been doing this for a little over 10 years now in the light mount space and trying to provide the best illumination accessories that we can, because it's a full-time job trying to figure out where to start when you start adding lights and lasers and suppressors and grips and sling mounts and everything else around the gun. So we want to try to simplify that process. And over the last 10 years, with the change of weapons alone, and then look at lasers just in the last 10 years of how that's really made us rethink how we set up our weapons, even our optics nowadays. Lights in competition with suppressors, et cetera, right? I could go on and on and on. I think those changes alone that we've seen in the last 10 years has really made us kind of, I guess, inspired to revamp the entire Thorntail line. Not just from a design standpoint, but a simplicity standpoint, because we've had over 20 mounts now, I think, looking back in the last 10 years. And what I'm about to share with you today in these videos, whether you're on the M-LOK video or the 1913 video, is four options that mostly do it all. Now we are gonna add a couple more options in the future, some different cantilevers and things that we started with a long time ago, but we wanted to get the baseline down, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. Also, from a design standpoint, we looked at operational experience, hard use in the last 10 years, different metallurgies, and we've realized that we can do it even better. That's the whole point of innovation, right? So we're going to share with you in these videos of how we've taken and changed the metallurgy, how we've changed the design, and gotten away from some of the old things that can create failure points, like making things too complex. You know, we used to have screw encapsulation systems and different mounting points, and we were shaving off so much metal, it started to get a little bit on the scary side. So we decided to stop there and revamp, and that's going to be the Thorntail X, guys. So stay tuned. I'm going to give you guys a configurations section here on M-LOK today and how to set up a couple different weapon systems, just to give you some ideas, and then we're going to talk about what is your weapon. Like if somebody asked you, tell me about your rifle, tell me about it. All right, M-LOK mounts, guys. We got two M-LOK mounts here. So we're going to talk about the inline right now, and then we'll talk about the offset, the M-LOK Offset here in a little bit. This has a little bit more options to it. So as far as the inline goes, you know, we've been doing the inline for quite some time, but we redesigned it. We made it more simple. We took out all the complex geometry and the porting and the holes on it. That way it's indestructible. We've actually broken rails before we've actually broke the light mount, which I'm okay with. And I know some people might go, well, what if my rail breaks first? The light should come off. Well, if your rail's under that much pressure, you're probably dying. So I'm trying to think of a scenario where that would actually make sense, but I want my mounts and my weapon systems to always be solid and always be one piece. So that's why we designed it that way. A little bit thicker in design. As far as setting it up, you got your two smaller screws right here, just to keep it simple for you. And then our two bigger torque screws back here for the M-LOK. I'm going to take my tail cap off. And what I'm deciding to do is I'm going to take this Surefire M300, and also this will fit any of the mod lights or cloud defensive lights, even the stream lights, the tactical pro versions will all go on this inline bar. So whatever you're deciding to run, out of those lights should work. Now what I'm choosing here is a BCM 12-inch. It's a brand new gun. I haven't shot this comp yet, so I'm going to keep it slick. I'm not going to put a suppressor on it. So I can actually inline this right into the 45-degree channel of the KMR rail. Now, putting it on, a lot of people like to put it really far forward. Well, this is where, again, your switchology and your hand position is going to come into play. So I'm using a vertical foregrip right here as kind of a stop. So where that switch would want to be is, yes, I could easily get away with it, but you can see how kind of that button's a little farther away for me, so I can't get to that. So I'm going to run it back where it should be, and also I'm not putting all that pressure, the overpressure and the gases into the head of the light. Now, a lot of these lights you can run over with freaking tanks nowadays, but I still don't want to beat the hell out of this thing with that much overpressure because I have seen them break over time. If I'm suppressing it, feel free to put it as far forward as you want. But I'm going to choose to put it back in this 45-degree channel right here. And then I would take my 25 Torx. I'm just going to screw that down, okay? And then at that point, I would then put my tail cap back on, okay? Now, I'm going to use just this standard clicky tail cap from Surefire. As far as manipulation goes, I'll show you that here in a second, but when you're mounting these things down, make sure that you're Loctiting everything. I don't care what anybody tells you. This is my own personal experience. Whether it's in a manual or not, make sure that you are Loctiting everything. So I use blue Loctite on all screws. If it's a screw, it turns, Loctite it, and even mark it. So a lot of guys you'll see take paint markers and will mark those screws down. That way, if it ever starts to turn a little bit, you can check in. Every day when I pick up my weapon, I'll do like a shooter check, as we call it. Obviously, I'm making sure my lights and lasers work, magnifiers worked, all the screws are good there. Making sure my flashlights work up here, making sure the screws haven't turned on me, especially on the optics, and ready to go. Then I'd load the gun and move out. Okay, so now what I have the ability to do with this system is I've mounted it on the right side and I'm right-handed, because I can get my thumb over and still press that button very easily. If I ever switch shoulders or do bilateral transitions, as they call it, I can still hit that button very easy. So that's why a lot of people like that really tight, close inline feel, and you can see how just sucked into the gun that really is. Now, if you're running a different configuration of weapon, which actually it's the same weapon system here, it's a BCM 12-inch, but I've decided to put this is more my night vision build and my suppressed build. So I've got an NGAL on here, I've got a Unity hot button, which I love. I've got a Surefire M300 with the Vampire IR head on it, and then I've got the dual switch on the back. That way I've got redundancy. I've got a little button switch over here, and I've got the hot button, and that doesn't interfere with the laser. Now what I've chose to do here is I've cantilevered that inline to the farthest point of the KMR rail, and that way it's coming up against my suppressor, because I'm always going to run this gun suppressed. So with that, I'm not getting any competition. There's plenty of space between the head and the suppressor, and it's super strong. You can see if I squeeze that as hard as I want, the rail will actually bend in first, which I'd rather have that happen instead of raking a window or a car in a house or whatever, in a box with a fox. That thing doesn't bend and break on me, because that light, just like this laser, just like this suppressor, just like this optic, just like this sling, just like the gun in general, is life support equipment. So we want it to all be of perfect integrity, okay, whole, complete, and perfect, the best we can without it breaking. So that's why we chose to do that. So you can see just two different configurations, but basically the same gun. Daytime shooter with low light capability, and daytime low light, no light capability with the nods all the way up. Okay, so that is more now at the 9 o'clock. So I have my hot button, and I've got my laser, because I like to go manual laser. Now, of course, you can run the dual hot buttons. I know Unity's got some pretty cool stuff coming out that you can run both switches on. You got the SR series switches from Surefire. So if you want to run all your controls back here from a switchology standpoint, easy to do. But this is clean, simple, manual laser, because the NGAL is so small, and then I can switch back to white light, because I don't want to confuse those two. Because if I'm running lasers, the last thing I want to do is have a negligent discharge of the light. So I make sure that my hand does have to move if I want to be deliberate at low light with the white light, or up on the nod. So that's my personal preference, just showing you guys some different configurations there. One more on the inline. This is one of our AKs. So I'm running it Mall on this thing from B.E. Myers, and then I'm running the M300 from Surefire with the dual switch on the back. Also have the smaller hot button from Unity right here. You can also get these on modlite as well. So I have all my control systems on top. So if I'm running visible laser or IR laser, or if I'm running my light, they're all right there. But I have to be deliberate in where I put my thumb. Okay. So I decided, instead of having a light hanging out over here and a laser hanging out over here, you'll see a lot of people that run the Mall systems, they'll stack it on top of the light. So I have to run the inline mount, again, same mount as these two guns, at the 9 o'clock. Gives me plenty of space between the light and the laser system so they don't compete, and I can put a can on there, which I typically run this gun suppressed as well, just again to show you a completely different configuration on a different style rifle. That's just really quick, short and sweet, how to set your inline lights up and why you might want to put it in that configuration. So as far as the M-LOK Offset, we're going to go ahead and dive into that now. So I'm going to go ahead and start, since I've got this simple canvas right here, we'll go ahead and take off the switch. I will then pop out my Torx screws again. And I just put them on loosely earlier. And now I'm going to go ahead and install the offset in. All right, so as I'm mounting this one, and this has a bunch of different options. That's a good thing about the offset. Versus the inline, it's kind of one setup and you choose where to put it. Like on this BCM rail, I've got the option to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 places if I really wanted to mount my light all the way around. The inline can go on any one of those. The offset can go on them as well, but if you notice on the offset, I've got the light actually configured in the top position, which actually, if you think about, if we go back to that light there and then replace it and put that on, they're almost in the exact same position. So what you can do with the offset, you can also do with the inline and vice versa. But this does give you just a little bit more options, because I'll show you some other configurations here in a second. Now, if I'm going to put this on this slick gun, again, I have the option to put it all the way forward, but I don't want to blast this thing because, again, it's slick. I'm not running it suppressed. So I'm going to mount it back into the back position here, the second M-LOK slot back from the front. And you can see it kind of sits nice and high over that bore. So again, I can get my thumb right on there, and I can also switch shoulders, just like I showed you earlier with the inline, and then you just torque that down. But before I torque it down, I want to show you guys, you can take and make your light from the top 12 o'clock position, and then you have 3 other sections that you can mount it in as well. So you have 1, 2, 3, and 4 areas that you can mount the light to. So with that, I got to kind of put a disclaimer in here. Not all light bodies are made the same, right? Between Cloud Defensive or Surefire or modlite or Streamlight or any of the other companies that are reputable companies out there. The Surefire is the only one, because of the way the feet are designed for the stock mount that comes with the Surefire. You can't put that on the very bottom section unless you do the old Dremel work and you cut those feet off, which I certainly have no problem doing. If you don't, trim them off if you want to put your Surefire at the bottom section. Other than that, all the other lights will fit on all 4 modes, okay? Because maybe I've got a laser here. So if I took and showed you guys one of my little SPR recce kind of configurations here, you can see that I've got my PEC 15. I've got an SR series switch so I can run all my controls from lights and lasers right here. And I'm running the M-LOK Offset, but I can't put the light on the very top like I have this one. So I've mounted it down 1 section below. That allows me to perfectly clear that laser, and there's just about a little bit less than 1/8 of an inch between that PEC 15 and that light, which sits it perfect on the gun. It's not hanging off the side. It's in a really good position for me there. If you wanted to run it down a little bit lower because you have a different style laser or something, you have that option there, okay? And also, as far as other guns, here's a little Vichas, little KP9. that we've kind of kitted out here with those people's lasers, right? I don't recommend these, they're crap. They don't hold zero. There's a reason why they can't win wars, okay? But if you like it from a nostalgia and collector's standpoint like I do, I'm still gonna put it on the gun, but I'm using the M-LOK Offset in almost the bottom position. So I'm one up from the bottom. That way it just, again, clears that laser just like on the D-ball. So again, any gun it will work on. On the M-LOK, you have those options, where the inline you might not have as much there. That's why we built both of those. So guys, just brain dumping here on a bunch of different M-LOK, as you can see. I mean, because you know what's going to happen. You're going to get your mounts, you're going to have 20 different lights, 20 different flashlights, or lasers and optics and slings and everything else, and you're going to find what works for you. So hopefully just me spitballing here some ideas at you, you can get a better idea how to set your M-LOK systems up for a little bit more success. Guys, thanks for joining me today on this video, and I hope it helped kind of solve some of the problems and potential solutions that you need to go out there and look for. Because like I said, it's a full-time job trying to figure out what mounts, what lights, what lasers, what optics, etc., right? So when I can sit here and talk for hours, like I said, about what configuration goes with what, but I think that's going to be back on you. With that said, I think it's important for us to ask ourselves a very, very critical question. And I'm going to give you that quiz like I reminded you in the intro. And that question is, tell me about your gun. So if you could pause the video right now, literally, and try this, man. It works because we do this in every single class, and you get a lot of crazy responses. So if you want to pause it and write this down, go for it. If not, self-reflect on that for a second. If I looked at this gun and you asked me, Travis, tell me about your gun. Well, I'd say it's a Daniel Defense Mark 18. It's got a LCAN on it. It's got a PAC-15 laser, a surefire M300 with the dual switch. It's got the Vampire head, got RC2 SOCOM can, BCM foregrip, BCM stock, Knights armament flip up. That's typically what you'll hear from people when you ask them to tell you about their rifle. But I don't think that's the best way to describe something that's a life support piece of equipment. So imagine if I was bleeding out and you ran by and you were unarmed and I said, hey, take my rifle. And I threw you my rifle and you said, well, tell me about it. Do you think I'd tell you about the optic and what kind of PEC's on it and what kind of flashlight and what kind of suppressor it is? Because that doesn't help you at all. So think about that question now. Maybe write that down, pause the video again, okay? Because I want to know what this thing does. I want to know everything, specifically the sighting system, the rounds that I'm using. I would say, hey, here's what I'm running. I'm running Mark 262 ammo. I've got 100-yard zero on this thing because it's an LCAN. It needs to be zeroed at 100 meters. I am combat effective out to 300 meters, which means you don't have to do any holds. After that, I use the 400 hold at 400. At 500, I use 550 because it's a little bit off because BDCs are a gimmick to a point. And then area targets out to 600 meters, stack about 10 foot high. Hold just a little bit low on the 600 reticle inside of this. I have not tested it out to 7 to 1,000, which the optic certainly goes to. I have the lights configured in the white light mode right now, but if you need to switch, you can switch it to the Vampire mode for flood. On the laser, I've got a parallel zero, and it is same combat effectiveness as the optic all the way out to infinity, okay? Just to give you a couple examples of how I would describe my weapon to you if it needed to save your life. So I think we should start thinking a little bit more about our rifles in a more intimate way of knowledge. Know what it does for you, because that's going to do nothing more but help you uphold that higher standard of care for society. Guys, thanks again for joining me today. I'm Travis Haley. Stay sharp, be safe, and don't forget to die free.